Hello again and welcome to Spotlight. Today my guest is Jim Remy. Jim is the career service consultant, I think for the area of New England, Connecticut, of the PGA, that's the Professional Golf Association of America. Jim, welcome.
Hey, it's great to be here, Ralph. I really am excited about being here. I love Ludlow. I love what you do and everything that goes on in this town with Ludlow TV. So it's my pleasure to be here.
Okay, great. Now, I do have one thing that before we even get into this topic, the distinction between New England and Connecticut. You happen to hit on something that is very close to my soul. Why?
Yeah.
Now, many people, especially from Connecticut, think they are in New England.
Yeah. It's interesting because the lines were drawn for the PGA way back in 1916. And at the time, they are what's called sections of the country. And the New England section was basically central eastern Massachusetts, Rhode Island, Maine, New Hampshire, and Vermont. That was the section. And the Connecticut section was western Massachusetts and Connecticut. And after all these years, more than 100 years of being the PGA of America has been in place, we still have 41 sections of the United States, and the lines make absolutely no sense, but it's one of those things that will never get changed.
Okay, let's begin with the very basic question. Who is Jim Remy?
Well, it's a good question. When you said you would ask me that, I thought a little bit about it. And, look, first of all, I'm a resident of Ludlow, Vermont. I've been here for most of my adult life. I moved here when I was 18 years old. I was in the early 70s, and I wanted to be a professional skier, and I went to work for Okemo Mountain in 1972. December 1st, 1972, I drove my car up from Massachusetts, unloaded at the Trestle House on Andover Street, and had a room to rent for $25 a week. And
$25 a week?
$25 a week, $25 a week, and I made, and I started my career in the ski business as a ski instructor, and that's what I wanted to do. And I told my mother I would try it for a year, and if it didn't work out, I'd come home. That was 1972, and I'm still here. So it must have worked out pretty well. I always joke about I've made my sort of name in golf, having been the president of the PGA of America and so on. But I really am a skier by heart. I still love skiing, still ski, and I came here as a skier. And the joke about it is that I only got in the golf business because I needed a summer job. And I used to hang around at Fox Run Golf Course in the old days with a pro named Ed Bello, who helped me get my start in golf. And sort of the rest is history, and I'm still here.
Well, that's wonderful. Now, what are you currently doing as a consultant?
Yeah, it's fun. After being the vice president and general manager of Okemo's golf facilities for 21 years for Tim and Diane Muller, and after the sale of the company, I basically retired. It was the time to move on. Vail really didn't have a position for me at the time, and so I moved on, and after about 4 weeks I was totally bored and needed something to do. So I took a job as a career consultant for the New England and Connecticut sections of the PGA of America, and I help PGA members find jobs, and I help golf clubs and golf facilities find a PGA member. So I sort of facilitate putting the two together to help PGA members and to help PGA employers, mostly golf clubs, but also golf manufacturers and those that want to hire a PGA member. So it's we call it career services. It's not really a headhunter. It's more of a facilitator. I help put people together.
We love to watch golf, my wife and I, and the one thing that we have noticed is over the years, the participation of fans seemed to have been increasing. And it seemed like they were building real stadiums for fans. And what is it, the players
Tournament Players Club in Ponte Vedra. They have designed, the architects now actually design courses with fan involvement. They'll design the course with stadium type atmosphere where there'll be hillsides on both sides of the fairway so that they can fit more fans in. Look, Tiger Woods had a huge impact on fan interest in the game, not only just fan interest, but also those taking up the game. So Tiger Woods, had a great effect on that. And so on site for major championships, the huge crowds, just tremendous crowds. And one of the biggest ones is the one right down there in Connecticut every year, the Travelers, where they have this, I think it's the second largest fan base of any of the tournaments. So it's very popular. People love to go. It's it's sort of like going to the NASCAR and seeing, it's an experience. It's not just about the athletes and the sport. It's all about the experience, the fan experience that goes on with it. And they're doing a great job. So it's very popular, and I know there are a lot of fans who are really looking forward to getting back to being able to see it live.
By the way, is it me or are the fans becoming a lot noisier?
Well, I think it's just the way people are. They express their opinions more, I guess you would say.
Now, what about just the schedule? I mean, I know that the PGA has got a very large schedule of tournaments, and things like the Masters is normally in was it March or April?
Yeah, April.
Now it's scheduled in October, or is it?
I think it's actually scheduled in November, but it is scheduled this fall, and then for the 2020 Masters will be held this fall. But they may be doing it without fans, and it's hard to believe that you can even imagine the Masters without fans. There's been a rescheduling of the U.S. Open. There's been a rescheduling of the PGA Championship, which is going on today as we speak. And there's been a rescheduling of the Masters. There are cancellations of a number of events, but there's a pretty regular schedule now going through for the players, all without fans at this point. So, look, they've addressed it. I think they've done everything they can. Nobody really wants it to be this way, but it has to be. And people are adjusting, just like you're adjusting and I'm adjusting, and we're all adjusting to this.
Well, let's face it. I mean, I don't think any of us like this, but I think we're all going to be addressing a new normality.
Yes, I agree, and I hope it gets better, and and I'm sure it will. They always have. There's been pandemics before, and there'll be pandemics again, and they do end, and people move on. So hopefully, I know it's going to be big changes in the world, but hopefully we get back to some assembly.
Is the PGA planning on doing anything if this COVID-19 becomes more of a perennial problem?
Yeah, I don't, I think they look at it that, look, we all have to do what's right and get it better, and we'll get back to some normalcy at some time. But I don't know what that's going to look like. Nobody knows what it's going to look like. I mean, personally, I thought by now we'd be better, but it's going, and we are better in a lot of ways in Vermont. But people got to pay attention. We got to get through it. They got to get a vaccine, and we got to, we'll move on, and life will continue.
Okay. Now about the PGA, could you just give us sort of a brief little history of how the PGA came into existence and what it does? Yeah,
that's a good question, because the interesting thing is there's really two PGAs, or three PGAs. There's the PGA of America, there's the PGA Tour, and there's the LPGA.
Okay.
So it's interesting. The PGA Tour is primarily the 144 players that you see on TV every week, the greatest players in the world, who compete on a weekly basis every week throughout the season. That's the PGA Tour. There have been women who played in PGA Tour events, but it's primarily the men that play on the PGA Tour. There's the LPGA, which is the Ladies Professional Golf Association, and that is a women's-only organization. And the women's-only organization provides teaching and coaching, as well as tournaments throughout the world. And they have a players division and a teaching and coaching division, and that is women, and they're the ones you'll see on TV also. The PGA of America, which is what I'm most involved in, originally owned the PGA Tour, but sold it in the late 70s or 80s to the players, and we became the association of those who are in the business of golf. And the PGA of America is about 28,000 men and women, professionals, who serve the golf industry all over this country. For instance, people would never guess this, but there are over 1,100 PGA members in New England. Just not counting Connecticut section. So with counting the Connecticut section, it's probably about 1,500 PGA professionals, members of the association who go to work every day in some facet of the industry. We also play the game, we teach the game, and we run the business of golf. So you have three real separate organizations, of which the PGA of America is one of the largest working sports organizations in the world.
Oh, I never realized that.
Mm-hmm.
Now, what are some of the anecdotal memories you have about golf? Like some of the players.
Well, I've had, obviously during the 8 years that I served in office, secretary, vice president, president, and honorary president, I had so many stories, and some involve great, golfers. I mean, I've had the opportunity to play with Tiger and Phil Mickelson, and I've played with many of the great players at some of the most unbelievable venues in the world. I've been all over the world with it. Attended, I don't know how many PGA championships and Masters and so on. But, it's interesting because some of the great memories I have were not necessarily about playing with Tiger or playing with Phil or so on. It was, in my case, I have a great memory of playing with President Bush, George W., and playing with him in Waco, Texas on a Folds of Honor Day when we were raising money for all the, fallen American heroes and those who are injured and so on. And we got to play together and, had a wonderful day. I've had the opportunity to go to the White House a few times, especially be in the, the Oval Office with President Bush and to meet his dad. I spent a number of hours with HW at the Ryder Cup in 2010. I spent the day with him, sort of giving him a tour of the whole Ryder Cup, and that was fun. I've played with celebrities, I've met incredible people, but I think the best memory I had was in 2009 at the annual meeting in New Orleans. I presented four black golf professionals who never had the opportunity to be members of the PGA of America because, quite crazy, up until the 60s, there was a Caucasian-only clause in the PGA bylaws.
You actually had a clause in it?
Well, yeah, it was until the early 60s. And of course, in the early 60s, that was struck out and it was taken down. But these they were outstanding golf professionals: Ted Rhodes, Bill Spiller, John Shippen, and then honorary membership to Joe Louis, the great boxer, who was a fantastic golfer, by the way.
He was.
Yeah. So I had the opportunity to present their families with membership for the three golf professionals and honorary membership to the family of Joe Louis, to kind of, make up for a wrong, something that was wrong that happened at a time when there were common things like that, unfortunately. And I got the opportunity to right a wrong. And I'll never forget the silence in the room when we presented the families with posthumous membership to the PGA of America for their, for those who had been through that, and the reaction that I had. So probably my greatest memory, because it had the biggest impact. I had the opportunity to right a wrong. It took a long time. It took from the early 60s to 2009 to get it done. But as president of the PGA, I had the opportunity to do that, and I'm very, very proud of that. That was probably the moment in time when you will never forget for me.
Yeah, I never realized it.
Yeah.
Well,
search Jim Remy and then the words Black Pioneers sometime, and you'll see an article online about it. It's pretty good.
Well, talking about on that subject, it's just recently that the Masters has allowed women, I guess, to become, I don't know if you call them
members of the Augusta National Golf Club. Yeah. That's happened, and again, that's all the change that's going on in the world, which is right, and it's what should be done. I mean, there were many, many men's clubs only in America at one time, and one by one, they've come around to the fact that it makes no sense. And Augusta National did it, and I'm proud of them for doing it. But it was a long time coming. So, you know, I don't want to get into political statements or anything here, but there's so many things that this generation today is seeing as things that we need to make better, and that's one of them. So I'm proud that they've done it, and we've seen, you know, a big change in the industry.
Well, I think Tiger Woods, you've already referred to, is a good example of the fact of what he has done for the game of golf.
Tremendous athlete, created tremendous interest with junior golfers, with people of color, minorities. So it's all good. It's good. You know, it's good. It's the right thing.
Okay, well, I go back initially to my interest in golf with Arnold Palmer. I was part of his little army, I guess.
Arnie's Army.
But he always impressed me as a guy who, you know, if he could do it, then all of us could do it.
I'm telling you, there wasn't a nicer man in the world than Mr. Palmer. I knew him personally. I got to meet him a number of times. And my mom was a huge fan. My mother never played golf in her life. My dad did, but my mother never played golf, but she loved Arnold Palmer. She loved, and she'd watch him every week. And so I got a chance when I became an officer of the PGA of America to spend some time with Mr. Palmer, and true gentleman, and there's a reason why they called him the King.
Well, he brought a lot to golf. He was sort of a younger version of Tiger Woods, I guess.
Absolutely.
In terms of the attraction of people.
There was nothing better in the day than the battles between Jack and Arnie.
Oh.
I mean, it was, you know, people would be glued to their TVs on Sunday afternoon.
Now, you mentioned earlier the LPGA, the ladies PGA. What is the relationship between PGA and LPGA?
Yeah, the LPGA is a women's association. The board is run by the women of the LPGA, and like I said earlier, they have a teaching and coaching division, and they have a playing division. Those are the ones you would see on TV, and so we work together a lot. I mean, the PGA of America, the PGA Tour, and the LPGA all work together to grow golf worldwide. Really, worldwide. There's a European PGA Tour, and you know, there's all kinds of PGAs in the world, but they have a great relationship. We're all sort of have the same ideas of growing our sport and making it better. Mm-hmm. You know, golf is a tremendous game. It's fun, it's social, it's healthy, it's active. You know, people who play golf live longer than people who don't play golf. I know people are going to think that's crazy, but they do. They do, because they're active and they get out and they participate, and they have an interest, and there's a fire in their belly and they want to do better. That's why I like being around it. I mean, if you look at my lifetime, I've spent my entire life on a ski hill and in a golf course. That's where I've made my living since I was 18 years old, and I love it. I mean, I still love it. So,
well, that's great. Now, you've mentioned the international side of it, and I know you have been involved in the Ryder Cup.
Mm-hmm.
Now, how is the PGA relationship with, say, the European version, or for that matter, does the Middle East have a version?
There are two really big events: the Ryder Cup, which is basically the European Union against the United States, and that's the one that's really the biggest and most popular. And it's been around since 1926. I think the first Ryder Cup event was actually held at Worcester Country Club in Worcester, Massachusetts, which a lot of people don't know that. And it's one of the biggest sporting events in the world. It really is on the same basis as, you know, the Super Bowl, the World Series, or, you know, whatever, the NBA Finals or whatever. But this is, and you know, it's the opportunity to represent your country, or, you know, or Europe. And there's a lot of pride in that. I'll never forget in 2010 when I was president of the PGA, and I stood up at the opening ceremonies to give the speech for the United States of America. As president, it was my job to represent the United States team and the United States of America. And I stood up, and there were 40,000 people in front of me. And before I went on stage, somebody kind of elbowed me, and they said, "Don't get nervous. This is only being telecast to 300 million homes." And I thought, oh my God, I can't believe that I'm doing this. And I got up and I gave the speech at the opening ceremonies for the United States of America, and they raised the flag, and it was an amazing day. And then 3 days later, the closing ceremonies, we actually lost that Ryder Cup by half a point on the last hole on the last day, and I had to speak at the closing ceremonies on behalf of the United States and wish to congratulate the European team. It was just an incredible experience to think that a little old golf pro from Ludlow, Vermont, got to do that. So it was pretty cool. I was happy.
Oh, that's wonderful. Now, the game of golf, before I got married, I used to try and play a little bit of golf. There have always been some questions I've had about it. And one of the things that has always puzzled me is, the long putter.
Mm-hmm.
What's happened to that? I still see, I think it's one of the Australians who still use it.
Yeah, it's not illegal to use a long putter. It's illegal to anchor a long putter. And what that means is that the people who were playing with a long putter would anchor it against their chest.
Oh.
So basically they would, whether they did it this way or this way, you can do it either way. They would anchor it against their chest. And the golf bodies, the United States Golf Association and the Royal and Ancient in Scotland, which are basically the rules bodies for the rules of golf worldwide, decided to ban anchoring. So they didn't ban the putter, they banned anchoring. So you can use a long putter, you just could not actually anchor it against your chest. You have to hold it away from your chest, which, when you do that, you lose some stability. So a lot of players went away from it when they did that, went back to, there are other forms. People have left hand low, cross-handed, claw. There's so many different ways to hold a putter, and I've probably held it 10 different ways. So yeah, it was really not banned. It was the anchoring was banned, and I think they felt that it gave the player an unfair advantage.
Yeah, I guess I could see where
it's debated. It's still debated every day, Ralph. So don't be surprised if you can't figure it out, because we're all still trying to figure it out too. They still debate it every day.
Okay, now what about the role of a caddy? For example, in a tournament, is there a fixed rate that a caddy gets for?
Yeah, whether it's PGA Tour or, you could get a caddy at a local club, or you can get a caddy on the PGA Tour. The caddies are paid well on the PGA Tour. They generally work on a salary plus percentage of winnings. So when your player does well, you make more money. When your player doesn't do well, you go home with less money.
Yeah. Okay.
So golf is it's a game where half the field goes home every week without making anything. There's a cut after 2 days,
yeah.
And if you don't make the cut, you don't win any money, and you still have to pay your caddy, you still have to travel, you still have to do all those things. So it's not like baseball or football or basketball, where you might not even play in a game and you're making a lot of money, or you're nothing against second baseman, but you could be a second baseman batting 200 and you're making a ton of money. In golf, you got to perform. You actually have to perform in order to make your money. So,
talking about the money side of it, has the LPGA ever had the situation arise similar to what's happened in soccer between the ladies and the men about equal pay?
Oh, that's not really, because they play in separate tournaments, and it's sponsor driven basically, and television ratings driven. The purses on the PGA Tour are the highest in the world. European Tour is probably second. LPGA is probably third. Champions Tour, which is the senior level of the PGA Tour. So, it's really driven by television ratings and sponsorship. And it's also not a case of, you can't even really call it pay, because it's winnings. Again, you have to perform in order. There's no, set rate for a golfer. It's, play well or go home.
I've always had the feeling in golf that you're not playing against somebody other than yourself.
I think that's the hardest thing about golf, is it's a really good golfer on tour takes 68 swings over a 4-hour period or a 4.5-hour period. There's a lot of mental game. There's a lot of mental in golf. And, you know, in order to be a great golfer, you have to be strong mentally, because it's hard. Golf is difficult to play at a very high level. I mean, don't get me wrong, all sports are really hard. I think the average person never really understands how hard it is to be a professional baseball player or how hard it is to be a professional golfer. I always said the pyramid gets very small at the top. To be one of the best 144 players in the world, you know, that's pretty good.
Okay. Now, when a player goes to on a tournament, how does he live? I mean, I think I remember seeing photographs of some of them in trailers.
Well, in the old days, you know, I mean, Jack and Arnie used to drive to the tournament, and they'd drive from, you know, 1,000 miles to get to the next site, and they'd get a hotel room. Today, these individual players, the best in the world, are like they're basically corporations. I mean, they have a coach that travels with them. They have you know, the mental side of the game. Coach. They have accountants, caddies, physio guys. A lot of them, the top players rent homes. Like when they go to Augusta, they'll rent a home, and they'll put their family in there. They'll put the cat. You know, it's a big deal now. The expenses are really high, and the days of jumping in your Cadillac and driving 1,000 miles to the next site and finding a hotel, it's over now. Most of them fly private. You know, they have deals with private airlines, private jets. You see NetJets or some of those on there. They all have deals. They fly private. They travel so much. It's a big organization now, just to be a top player.
Okay, well, it's worth it. Now, one of the things I remember going on golf, some guy, and I don't recall his name, who was disabled, wanted the PGA to allow him to use a vehicle.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I believe the PGA has a ruling saying you have to walk the course.
On the PGA Tour now, I believe that they have a walking only clause. There are different sites like the PGA Championship, which is going on right now. You can apply for disability, and you could get a cart, and the cart has to stay outside of the ropes. So you would actually drive the cart up the side, get out, walk into the ball, and then come back out. Ken Green from Connecticut has a disability, lost half a leg, has been out there playing. He's had a cart. John Daly recently has had a cart in senior events. So there are specific events where you can apply for a disability, but on the tour itself, I believe that they're still basically walking only. Although I find that, you know, I'm sure if a person with a disability could play at that level and then apply for, you know, a disability exemption, I got to believe they could get it. But to be able to play at that level would be really difficult.
Okay. Now, let's just talk about your own future. Now, what's going to happen with you and the PGA? I mean, you've been with it for a number of years.
Mm-hmm. Well, I'm working for the PGA of America now as a career consultant, but I'm also, you know, listed as a past president of the association. So when we get back to normal, I'll still participate in 4 or 5 events a year for the PGA. I'll travel to PGA championships, senior PGA championships, Ryder Cups. I also go to our PGA annual meeting every year, which is about, you know, 400-500 of the leaders of the PGA of America throughout the country. I attend that. I also go to the PGA Merchandise Show in Orlando, which is really the biggest event, you know, in the industry every year, where everybody gets together for, you know, where they go to buy merchandise and, you know, go to education programs and so on. So I'll still be involved as a past president of the association. Fortunately, I get to be involved until I can't get out of the house, I guess. But and, you know, we'll see as far as the position I'm in now. I'm, I feel like I'm doing a good job, and I'm going to continue to do it until, I feel like I'm ready to retire.
Okay, well, what about retirement? Do you have any feeling for that?
I'm not sure, because I'm not sure what I'd do all day if I didn't have something to do. I think that the thing that bothers me most about retirement is I'm not really good at being bored and hanging out at the house. So I like what I do. I have my days when I go, geez, I wish the phone would stop ringing. But I like what I do. I'm going to do it as long as I want, as long as I not can, but I think, I always tell Darlene, I said, as soon as I don't like it anymore, I'm going to retire. And right now I like it. So we'll just leave it at that.
Well, talking about that, and this is just dealing with your own personal life in your yard. Don't you have a sort of a problem mowing your lawn?
You saw the post on Facebook, I think. I've gotten actually quite a few responses to my Facebook post about, I figured out I've been mowing my lawn since I moved in that house 1985 on South Hill, and I've been mowing that lawn since 1985, and one day I figured out roughly, I think I've mowed it 810 times, so I love mowing my lawn. People actually in the PGA would always say to me, they say, "You mow your own lawn?" I said, "Of course I mow my own lawn. Who else is going to mow it?"
Well, do you mow it similar to the way they would mow a fairway?
You've been talking to my wife. Yeah, I stripe my lawn. I try to stripe it like a fairway.
Okay. Jim, I really want to thank you. This has been a fun discussion. And I do wish you luck in the future. And don't get bored.
Well, I want to thank you. I want to thank you for all you do for this community. I've lived here since 1972, and this is my home. It's been my home, and I love Ludlow. I love the ski area and the golf course and everybody in this town. And I want to make sure I thank you for what you do, because you've been a big influence on being able to have this show. So thank you.
Okay. Well, good luck in the future.
Thank you.
And I guess that's going to be a wrap for now. We'll see you sometime in the future.